My mother leaned across the table at my own birthday dinner and whispered 4 words to my dad. Go handle her apartment. 20 minutes later, my brother was face down on a marble floor with a gun at the back of his head. He thought he was locking his broke little sister out on the street. What he actually did was break into a penthouse guarded by federal security, a penthouse I owned free and clear with my name on the deed. By the time dessert would have come out, this family lost their golden boy, their house, and their grip on me. For good. If you've ever had a family member treat you like their personal ATM, you need to hear this one. Welcome back to Silent Revenge. Drop the city you're watching from in the comments and hit that like button before we start because trust me, you are going to need something to smash by the end of this dinner. My name is Simone Carter. I'm 34 years old, and for 12 years I built an investment company that my own family knew absolutely nothing about. Not the name of it. Not the money in it. Not one single thing. The restaurant was one of those steakhouses in downtown Chicago where the menu doesn't list prices and the waiters wear more expensive shoes than half the customers. My mom, Denise, picked it. Of course she did. She loves a stage, and that night I was about to become her prop. My sister-in-law, Brianna, opened the show before the breadbasket even hit the table. You sure you can swing a place like this, Simone? She said, loud enough for the table next to us to hear. An appetizer here probably costs more than your whole paycheck. It's kind of irresponsible, honestly, picking somewhere like this on your little office salary. I didn't correct her. I didn't tell her that my little office job was actually a $50 million asset management firm I'd built from nothing, brick by brick, deal by deal. I just picked up my sparkling water and let her enjoy her moment. My brother Malcolm laughed and slid his arm around Brianna's shoulders. Let her have her fantasy, babe. It's her birthday. We'll cover her if the card gets declined. Then my mom set her wine glass down and looked at me the way she'd looked at me my entire life. Like I was a disappointment she was still, somehow, generously tolerating. Simone, honey, you really need to start listening to your sister-in-law. 34, single, still trying to live above your means. It's embarrassing. Family takes care of family, and right now your brother is going through a rough patch. The rough patch, she meant, was Malcolm getting evicted from his luxury condo. A year earlier, he'd talked a handful of co-workers into throwing money into a crypto trading fund. He was running out of his apartment. When it collapsed, 2 of them filed complaints, and Malcolm walked away with a fraud conviction and a year of probation. My mom called it bad timing. I called it exactly what it was. But in my mom's world, Malcolm's disasters were just bad luck. My independence was the real crime. I'm doing just fine, Mom, I said evenly. I can handle my own birthday. Brianna scoffed and flipped her hair. Sure you can. Just like you handled working 3 jobs through community college while Malcolm got to find himself. Not our fault you did it the hard way. Kind of sad, honestly, watching you play dress up. That's when I caught it. My mom leaned into my dad's ear and murmured something she thought the restaurant noise would swallow. While everyone's still here, tell your son to go handle her apartment. Put her stuff in the hallway if he has to. My dad, Robert, gave a slow, cowardly nod. He tapped Malcolm's foot under the table. Malcolm pulled out his phone, pretended to read a text, and stood up with a grin. Sorry guys, gotta take this call. Big opportunity. Don't wait on me for the main course. I watched my brother walk out those front doors like a man on a mission, heading straight to my building with a bag of tools, fully convinced he was about to lock his sister out of her own life and move his wife in by morning. They thought I was still the 22-year-old kid who needed their permission to breathe. They had absolutely no idea what was coming. If you're new here, this is where I ask you to subscribe because trust me, you do not want to miss what happens to that opportunity Malcolm went to go handle. Part 2, The Ambush. With Malcolm gone, my mom straightened her shoulders like a general taking the field. You're packing your things tonight, Simone. Brianna and Malcolm are moving into your apartment tomorrow. I didn't blink. I just watched the sheer audacity radiate off her like heat off summer asphalt. My dad finally chimed in. Your brother lost his place because the market turned on him. He needs stability. You're single, you can crash somewhere smaller for a while. Family steps up. Let me get this straight, I said, laughing dryly. You sent Malcolm to break into my apartment, and now you're telling me I'm the one getting evicted. By my own parents. My mom waved a hand like she was swatting a fly. It's not an eviction if it's my name on that lease, Simone. I co-signed that apartment 12 years ago. I have every right to hand it over to my son. You've lived there rent-free in spirit long enough. Time to pay your dues. Brianna added her 2 cents, inspecting her manicure. Honestly, the place is a little cramped for our taste, but we're willing to make the sacrifice until Malcolm closes his next big deal. You should be thanking us. They had zero idea I'd bought out that entire building 3 years earlier. I didn't just live there, I owned the lobby, the elevators, the roof, the ground underneath their feet. But I wasn't ready to drop that bomb. Not yet. I wanted to know exactly how far their greed would go first. I see, I said slowly. So Malcolm gets my apartment. What else does he get? My dad reached into his jacket and slid a folded piece of paper across the table. He tapped it twice. We need you to sign this too. A promissory note. Malcolm's got some debts with old landlords and investors. Nothing he can't handle, he just needs cash in hand. Fast. I glanced at the number printed at the top, $150,000. You want me to take out $150,000 loan for Malcolm? My mom leaned in, eyes narrowing. We're not asking, Simone. We're telling you. You've got no husband, no kids. What exactly are you saving all that money for? It's your duty as a woman in this family to lift your brother up. He carries this family's name. If he falls, we all fall. You're going to the bank Monday morning. And there it was. The tax nobody ever agrees to, but somehow everybody's expected to pay. The idea that because I never married, because I never had kids, my entire existence owed a debt to Malcolm's failures. And if I refuse? I asked, holding my dad's gaze. He scoffed. Then we ruin you. Your mother calls the property company tomorrow and has you removed by tomorrow afternoon. I make calls to everyone I know in this city and make sure you can't even rent a closet. You'll have nothing. No home, no family. You'll be nothing, just like before we helped you. Brianna smiled, satisfied. Just sign it, Simone. Don't make this harder than it has to be. I picked up that promissory note. I looked at the absurd number. Then I folded it in half. Then in half again. You're right about one thing, Dad, I said. Family should step up when things get hard. But you made one massive miscalculation tonight. I dropped the folded paper straight into my water glass. We all watched the ink bleed and blur as it sank. Brianna gasped. Are you insane? That was a legal document. No, I said, dabbing my mouth with my napkin. That was trash. And I'm done being this family's landfill. Comment below with a fire emoji if you'd have done the exact same thing. And don't go anywhere, this is only the appetizer. The real gut punch is coming. Part 3, The River. My mom slammed her hand on the table so hard the silverware jumped. You ungrateful little brat. You think you can embarrass us in public? Call the manager if you want, but Malcolm's already there. He's changing the locks as we speak. You have nowhere to go tonight. I held her stare. Call them, Mom. Go ahead and call whoever you think is in charge. You're going to be very disappointed when nobody answers. My dad's face turned a dangerous shade of red. You're making a mistake, Simone. You're burning bridges you can't afford to rebuild. I smiled, genuinely, for the first time all night. I don't need your bridges, Dad. I own the whole river. Table went dead silent. My mom let out a sharp, mocking laugh that echoed off the ceiling. You own the river? Listen to yourself. You read one self-help book and suddenly you're a real estate mogul. You're a glorified office assistant who got lucky with a decent paycheck. My dad leaned in, jabbing a finger at the water glass where the ruined note was dissolving into pulp. Ruining a piece of paper doesn't change anything. I'll have my lawyer draft another one tomorrow. You'll sign it and you'll wire that $150,000 to your brother by Friday. You owe this family. We gave you the foundation to succeed. You gave me a foundation, I repeated, voice low. Let's actually talk about that foundation, Dad. Let's talk about the real price of what you think I owe. My mom's eyes darted away. She knew exactly where I was headed, and she wasn't going to like it. I was 22, I continued. Fresh out of school, trying to rent my very first apartment. Do you remember what happened, Mom? 'Cause I remember sitting in a leasing office, humiliated, being told my credit was completely wrecked. Turns out my own mother had used my social security number to open 3 credit cards in my name. Brianna's head snapped toward my mom. Wait, what is she talking about? I'm talking about $40,000 of debt my mom racked up on vacations and seed money from Malcolm's first failed business, I said, never breaking eye contact with her. She maxed out cards in my name and left me to clean it up. I worked 3 jobs. Nights, weekends, holidays. 4 hours of sleep a night just to pay off debt that wasn't mine. I did it so my own mother wouldn't go to prison for identity theft. That was my tax. I paid it in full at 22. I am not paying it again tonight. My dad slammed his fist on the table. How dare you drag up ancient history? Your mother made a mistake during a hard financial stretch. We moved past that. Your brother needs you now. He doesn't need me, I said. He needs a reality check. He's a 36-year-old man who can't keep a roof over his head without his parents extorting his little sister. That's when Brianna decided to step into the ring, arms crossed, sneer locked and loaded. This right here, this is exactly why you're 34 and completely alone, Simone. You're the poster child for the bitter, hyper-independent woman who thinks she doesn't need anybody. No man is ever going to want somebody this rigid, this calculating. You're just hoarding a paycheck out of spite. I didn't raise my voice. I let her burn through every ounce of venom she had, because I already knew what was coming for all 3 of them. Right on cue, the waiter arrived carrying a sleek black folder. He set it in the center of the table. $4,600. For a family that claimed to be desperate, they hadn't exactly held back. Vintage champagne, imported truffles, the most expensive cuts on the menu. My dad patted his jacket. Ha! Must have left my card in the car. Brianna suddenly discovered the ceiling was fascinating and refused to make eye contact. My mom slid the folder toward me without missing a beat. Consider it your contribution to this family. Since you're so determined to be difficult about the loan, the least you can do is pay for your own birthday. I didn't argue. I reached into my bag and pulled out a solid titanium card, the kind you don't apply for, the kind you get invited into once you're moving serious money on a regular basis. I set it down. It hit the tray with a heavy, unmistakable thud. Brianna's jaw actually dropped. She knew exactly what that card meant. My mom just stared at it, confused, her brain refusing to connect the dots. "Where did you get that?" she demanded. "Did you steal it? Are you committing fraud again?" "I'm not committing fraud, Mom," I said calmly. "And for the record, you never covered for anything. I earned this." The waiter came back a moment later, treating me like royalty. "Excellent choice, ma'am. I'll process this right away." I sat back and watched the arrogance drain out of their faces, replaced, slowly, deliciously, by panic. "I'm not a glorified assistant, Brianna," I said. "I'm the founder and managing partner of an asset management firm that handles 9 figures in commercial property across 3 states. I don't wait on a paycheck on the 1st and 15th. I decide who gets one. If your jaw just dropped like Brianna's did, smash that like button because trust me, this family had no idea what was about to hit them next." My mom shook her head, refusing to accept it. That's impossible. You rent that apartment. You're a tenant, Simone. I haven't been a tenant in 12 years, Mom, I said. I paid off that cosign lease in cash the same year I started my company. You've been getting automated renewal emails from a property management system I personally own for the last 3 years. I let you keep believing you had a leash on me because it kept you from ever looking closely at what I was actually building. That's when her phone buzzed on the table. Then again. And again, a rapid, panicked buzz. She flipped face down without even glancing at the screen. She wanted her execution, not a distraction. She had no idea I'd already set the pieces in motion hours earlier. Let's talk about Malcolm, I said quietly. Because he didn't just walk into a rental unit tonight. 2 weeks ago, I moved out of that penthouse and leased the entire top floor to a foreign consulate, using it as a temporary secure residence for a visiting diplomat. Your golden boy just walked in with a crowbar, trying to force his way into a protected diplomatic residence. The blood drained from Brianna's face. My dad's hand flew to his chest. Before anyone could say another word, the heavy front doors of the restaurant slammed open. "Okay, I promise this is where it gets wild. But first, tell me in the comments, do you think Malcolm makes it out of that building tonight? I'll read your guesses before we get to the ending. Now, let's go back to that hallway. There's one more thing you need to know before we go any further, because it matters for what happens later. 2 tables away from us that whole night sat a woman named Renee Walsh. Renee wasn't just some random diner. She ran security operations for my firm, and she was the one person outside my inner circle who knew exactly who I really was and exactly what I was worth. I'd asked her to be there. Not to step in. Just to watch, to document, and to make one phone call the second Malcolm's name hit a certain building's access log. She sat quietly with a glass of wine, scrolling her phone like any other guest, while I let my family dig their own grave one insult at a time. If you're wondering how a woman with a 9-figure company just happened to have armed federal guards show up at exactly the right moment, now you know. Nothing about that night was luck. Every second of it was already planned and waiting. Malcolm burst through the doors of the restaurant looking like he'd crawled out of a war zone. Sweat-soaked shirt, buttons torn, face a sickly gray, hyperventilating so hard the whole dining room turned to stare. He didn't go to his wife. He collapsed at my mom's feet, grabbing fistfuls of her dress. "Mom," he gasped, "you have to help me. I did exactly what you said. I had the tools. I went up to the penthouse floor, and then there were guards. Real guards, Mom. Tactical vests. Earpieces. They slammed me against the wall before I even got the door open. There was a gun against the back of my head. I thought I was dead." My dad grabbed his shoulder. "Keep your voice down. Tell us what happened." "They ran my name," Malcolm choked out. "Saw my priors. My probation. The head of security told me I was looking at 10 to 15 years for trying to breach a protected diplomatic residence with burglary tools." He looked up at my mom, eyes wild. "You told me it was an easy lockout. You told me it belonged to us." Brianna dropped to her knees beside him. "What did it cost to get you out, Malcolm? What did you do?" $25,000, he whispered. "I maxed the emergency card. It was that or handcuffs." Brianna went pale. "We have $400 in our checking account, Malcolm. We are getting evicted tomorrow morning. You just spent our entire life raft on a fine." I watched the whole implosion with a calm I hadn't earned overnight. I'd earned it over a decade of being underestimated. "It's remarkable," I said, folding my hands. 20 minutes ago you called me a failure. You demanded $150,000 to fund his lifestyle. Now the golden boy is broke, blacklisted from the property, and staring down a federal file. All because he tried to steal from the one person you thought was too weak to fight back. My mom shot up out of her chair so fast it toppled backward. "Call them off, Simone. You own the building. Pick up your phone and fix this right now." "I don't have the authority to erase a federal security breach, Mom. And even if I did, I wouldn't lift a finger. That fine is the cost of Malcolm's freedom. It's the price he paid for listening to a mother who treats property law like a suggestion. My dad's voice cracked. You have to help them. You're sitting on millions. You just threw down a black card for dinner. You have a moral obligation. There's no obligation left, Dad, I said, standing and smoothing my jacket. You severed that the moment you brought a $150,000 note to my birthday dinner and threatened to put me on the street. I picked up my bag. My mom grabbed at my sleeve, and that's when, for the first time all night, I saw real fear in her eyes, not performance, not manipulation. She'll fear. There's something else, she said, voice shaking. You should know your old design company. The little LLC you started at 22 and never fully closed out. We used it. Malcolm found the old tax ID. We put it down as a commercial guarantor on a second mortgage against the house. We funneled the payout straight into his crypto account. The whole table went silent. If that market bounced back, Malcolm gets rich, she said, chin trembling with false bravado. If it crashed, your company's on the hook for the default. So you're going to fix this, Simone, or the bank comes after your firm for fraud. You're tied to us. You'll always be tied to us. I reached into my bag and pulled out a manila folder I'd been carrying all night, waiting for exactly this moment. I set it in front of her. That's the foreclosure file, I said. I found the fraudulent mortgage the same week you forged my signature on the guarantor paperwork. I didn't stop you. I let you take the money. I let Malcolm dump every dollar of your home equity into a market I already knew was about to crash. I let you hang yourselves with your own rope. My mom's hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold the papers. You knew? You let us lose the house. I didn't lose the house, Mom. You did. And I already reported the fraud. Forged signature, IP logs, the wire routing. The FBI has had all of it for over a week. If you need a second to process that like I did the first time I heard a version of this story, take it. Like this video right now so it doesn't get buried, then come back, because the story isn't over yet. I walked out of that restaurant into the cool night air, and a black sedan was already waiting at the curb. My driver, Anthony, opened the door for me. I slid in and finally let out a breath I felt like I'd been holding for 12 years. Before we could pull off, the doors burst open again. Brianna stormed out first, heels snapping against the pavement, and the second Malcolm reached for her arm, she spun and slapped him so hard his head snapped sideways. You're a fraud, she screamed. You told me your family had money. You just handed over our last 25 grand to security guards. I am done covering for you. She flagged a cab and left him standing alone on the sidewalk. Then my dad ran up to my window, out of breath, all his pride gone. Simone, please. Your mother is in there having a panic attack. You have connections. Make a call. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. You want me to spend my credibility protecting a man who showed up at my building with a crowbar? I said. He billed his own consequences, Dad. You just handed him the tools. He begged. I said no. I told my driver to pull away, and that's when my mom threw herself in front of the car. She was on her knees on the pavement, mascara running, screaming that I owed her, that God would punish me, that I couldn't abandon my own blood. I stepped out of the car one last time. You didn't give me a life, Mom, I told her. You gave me a debt, and you've spent every one of my 34 years expecting me to pay it off. I'm done. I turned to the restaurant's general manager, who was standing under the awning watching the whole scene unfold. Pack up whatever's left on table 4, I told him. All of it. Hand it to the people out here on your sidewalk. Something tells me they're going to need it. I got back in the car. Take me home, I told Anthony. And that right there is the moment I finally understood what silent revenge actually feels like. It's not screaming. It's not begging. It's just closing a car door and driving away. Here's the part one didn't put in the title because I wanted you to sit with the dinner first. Malcolm was formally charged with attempted unauthorized entry into a protected residence. Between that and violating his probation from the earlier crypto fraud case, he took a plea deal, 18 months. My parents faced their own charges separately, for the forged guarantor signature and the fraudulent mortgage they'd taken out in my old company's name. 'Cause I'd already handed the FBI the paper trail, the forged signature, the IP logs, the wire routing, my firm was cleared of any liability within weeks. My parents weren't so lucky. They were ordered to pay full restitution on the mortgage, on top of everything else. The house went into foreclosure exactly on schedule. My parents are renting a small 2-bedroom on the other side of the city now, and last I heard, Brianna filed for divorce and moved back in with her own mother in Ohio. She sent me one message a few weeks after everything fell apart. It just said, "I'm sorry for what I said about you. I hope you find someone who deserves you." I didn't reply. Not out of spite, I just didn't have anything left to give that conversation. My mom still calls sometimes. Sometimes it's crying. Sometimes it's guilt. Once it was an actual apology, the first real one I'd ever heard come out of her mouth in 34 years. I let it sit there for a second before I told her I appreciated it, and that I still wasn't ready to talk. Healing doesn't mean reopening the same door that almost buried you. Sometimes it just means finally being allowed to close it. My dad reached out too once through a mutual family friend, not directly. He wanted to know if I'd help cover a lawyer for Malcolm's appeal. I said no. It wasn't easy to say. There's a version of me, the 22-year-old version sitting in that leasing office with her credit destroyed, who still flinches every time my dad's name shows up on a screen. But that girl isn't running my life anymore. The woman who built an empire out of her own 2 hands is. Renee, who's basically the sister I actually chose, tells me all the time that I don't owe anybody an explanation for protecting my own peace, and honestly, she's right. She was there for every version of me, the exhausted 22-year-old working 3 jobs, the 28-year-old signing her first commercial lease with shaking hands, and the woman who sat at that dinner table and didn't blink. She's the family I built when the one I was born into decided my worth was measured by how much I could give away. I didn't set out that night to destroy my family. I want to be honest about that because this isn't a revenge fantasy. It's just what happens when consequences finally catch up to people who spent decades believing they never would. I set out to stop being their emergency fund. I set out to stop apologizing for surviving harder than anyone thought I could. Everything after that was simply the truth doing what it always does eventually, showing up, uninvited, and staying exactly as long as it needs to. Some nights I still think about that folded piece of paper dissolving in the water glass. I think about how easy it would have been to sign it, to keep the peace, to shrink myself back down to the size they needed me to be. And I think about how much of my life I already spent doing exactly that before I finally stopped. If you've ever had to sit across a table from people who shared your blood but never had your back, I want you to know something. It is not selfish to stop bleeding for people who won't even acknowledge the wound. It's not cruel to let consequences land where they were always headed. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for yourself is nothing at all. Just stop rescuing and let the truth introduce itself. That's the story. If it moved you even a little, hit subscribe and turn on notifications because Silent Revenge drops a new story every week, and trust me, you don't want to miss the next one. Drop a comment below and tell me, would you have folded that note into the water glass, or would you have walked out before dinner even started? I read every single one of them. Until next time, protect your peace, protect your money, and never ever explain yourself to people who never intended to listen. See you in the next story.